Hello, welcome. My name is Dinus Mickle. I'm with Tom Barnett. You are watching the Dinus.info TV show. I'm going to play my little intro that I came up with a billion years ago.
It's the Dinus.info TV show. It's the Dinus.info TV show.
Did you actually hear that?
No.
You didn't hear it, so my system audio did not come through to you. I saw a big heart, so somebody sent me a heart. You didn't hear my intro. That might mean that you don't hear. Okay, that means I'm going to have to change. That means I'm going to have to take my headphones off when I play something that you need to hear, that we would like you to hear. Okay. And I'm not exactly sure how to introduce you, so I think I'm going to just say that you're sort of the guy that came out online and said that you can't catch a virus. And I wanted to reach out to you and kind of get a sense for, is that true? Is that how it works? How does it work? And I've got a bunch of tech windows open. We're actually live. We've already gotten some kind of a heart from someone. We have viewers. So maybe you could introduce yourself. Tell us where you're coming from. And I will, though, before you do that, no, go ahead and introduce yourself. Then I'll tell the audience the format of the show.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's see. I used to work as a holistic health practitioner. That was my job for quite a while. I got a little sick of the industry. I found the health industry to be a very sick industry, and there's a lot about it that I don't actually like. We can go into that later if you like. But I needed to do something different. I've always been a very creative person, and I needed to do more creative work than just dealing with the same repetitive health issues that, for me, had the same repetitive core causes, I guess you could say. So I switched to film and photography a few years ago. Haven't really done anything in health since, besides writing my first book, and I am writing a second as well. But it was more that I had friends who I thought knew better and were freaking out about this coronavirus. I couldn't see that it was a hoax, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a video just for my friends. And I told a couple of people, and they said no one's going to listen. And I said, I know, but I said I couldn't look back in the future and had not done anything. Even if I put out a video that nobody ever watched, at least I put something out. So that video was a result of all of the years of research and experience and experimentation that I had done in regards to pathogens, microbes, viruses, bacteria, protozoans, fungus, all that kind of thing. From being very sick myself and from treating other people. And I guess that's how people got to know me now, is by that video, because until that went out, I wasn't really known by anybody.
Hmm.
So,
What did your health journey include? Is that something that you cover in your book, or is that something that you like talking about, or do you generally avoid talking about it?
it's not something that I avoid. I just don't actively bring it up with people. I think one of the elements of ill health has a lot to do with the psyche. And a lot of times, if you are delving into that all the time, and that's the story running through your head, like, I'm sick, I'm a sick person, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's what you hear a lot of people say when they're in a chronic state of illness. They're constantly talking about the illness. And that's actually something that will keep people in a suppressed state of immunity or vitality, or depression, or anything to do with mental or physical health. That can be that can, just talking about it a lot, having it as a consistent topic, can be a negative attribute. So I'm always happy to talk about it. Throughout today, if you have questions for me regarding it, I'll talk about anything you like. I didn't write about it except for in the introduction of the book that I have out at the moment, but the book that I'm currently writing is something that I felt I had to get out, because I still see so many people suffering from chronic long-term health conditions that have a lot to do with embedded toxicity. And so the book is really about how to remove that, how to get yourself out of suppressed states, and then also how to avoid further damage from any kind of medicine, especially including vaccines, which, with this coronavirus thing going on, it seems like mandated vaccines are a part of the agenda of what's going on now. So it's going to help people protect from that.
Well, do you, like, for me, I don't mind saying, like, a few of my diagnoses. Like, one of the things that I suffered with was I suffered with really horrible allergies. I had a doctor laugh at me and tell me that I needed a new liver. And I also had a horrific onset of tinnitus, like to the point where I was just going to jump out of a plane without a parachute. I was going to write a really nice letter to my friends and family and say, this is not a livable life. Now, I mean, my journey was I cleansed out my liver and then went and did the tests, and all my tests were perfect. I mean, it was a night and day situation. I went back to the same doctor and I said, are you going to share with other people, your other patients, this cleanse that I did? And he said in German, he said, Ich habe meine Vorschriften, which means I have my rules and regulations. Yeah. And he was like a sandals wearing, long hair, hippie, ha-ha, laughing, friendly doctor that you would just give your children to because you knew that he was the friendliest, nicest doctor in town. I couldn't believe it. I mean, over a span of 2 weeks, I went from needing a new liver, signing up to a new liver, to having perfect values, gall and liver values.
Yeah, wow.
So that's sort of, I'm sharing. What were your diagnoses, or did you diagnose?
Yeah, none. I had no. When I first got ill, I was in my early 20s. Every doctor that I went to said, "There's nothing wrong with you. Go home." And repeatedly. And I could barely get myself to the doctors. So that made me really angry, obviously. I went to an endocrinologist, a specialist gastroenterologist, and I think I went to one other specialist. And they were charging $500 for a 20-minute session. They still said, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm going, how can there be nothing wrong with me? I was an athlete. I could run all day and repeatedly, and now I couldn't even get to the doctors, basically. And they were telling me there was nothing wrong. So that led me to natural therapies. Interestingly, one of the first guys that I saw who was a natural therapist was a GP and a naturopath. He had qualifications in both, and he was German. And he said to me that chronic fatigue, which is what I was technically diagnosed with, was chronic toxicity. And so that was the beginning of starting to change my mind about, what I'd been learning through medical texts and everything, and really looking down that road. Because your story is actually really common, where people are signed up for surgeries that really aren't necessary at all. And when you've done something natural and you say this has helped, they don't want to hear about it. They'll say it's all in your head. How did I recover then? Oh, it's just in your head.
Well, a lot of it is, well, clearly, I mean, what you were saying before about the psychosomatic impact of constantly thinking about illness and sickness. We're kind of doing that as a society right now.
Yeah.
And just to get something sort of out on the table, like a lot of people like certifications and degrees and all this stuff. Like, do you have like papers that you wave in people's faces? And no, but you said you spent.
Yeah, I intentionally never qualified in anything. So from the standard system of going through university, I never qualified. Like, I'd wait till the end and I wouldn't qualify. I've studied under Paul Chek, who's I think the best holistic health practitioner in the world, but I didn't get a Chek qualification either. And I still haven't got any qualifications, anything, because one of the things that I saw early on when I was a teenager, I saw that people would precede themselves with a qualification.
Sure.
Like the qualification was supposed to, but it seemed to blind people from their inadequacies and what they could and couldn't do. And a lot of people seem to hide behind it. It's like people will walk into an argument, I'm a registered nurse or I'm a qualified doctor. And I'm like, why are you telling me that before you tell me what you're saying? Like, do you need something to prop up what you're going to say, because what you're going to say actually isn't that great? It's like, somebody walking up and saying, I'm a black belt in karate, so you should do what I say. It's like, well, if you have to say that before you say what you're going to say, I know that you can't actually look after yourself. So there's that element. That's not to say that people who are qualified aren't good. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that I never wanted to sell myself out, and I never had money as an intention to do something. So I have a lot of friends with degrees, and all of them admit the only reason they got that piece of paper was for security, because they could pick a job then where somebody would pick them because they have a piece of paper rather than their skills. And I've never been somebody who wanted to just settle. I've never wanted just good enough. I've never wanted that. I've always wanted to see exactly how far I can take something, exactly how deep I can go within myself. And for me, I'm not saying it's wrong for other people to do, but for me, I knew that if I ever settled or got qualified in something, it would limit my own learning and my own perception of what's possible. So that's only a personal choice, but yeah, that's why and also I started correcting teachers when I was in the 2nd grade. I remember correcting them on how to spell and them calling me names, and I'm like 6 years old, and I'm thinking, how is this working? You're supposed to be an adult, why are you treating me like this? And at that stage, I kind of thought, in an egotistical way, I would say, I don't want to get a qualification of somebody that I can outsmart. And that was just something that I found out through university with some of the professors. They couldn't answer my questions. They would get agitated at some of the questions I was asking, and I'd say, why can't you ask questions? I'm studying science. Is science not the art of asking a question? Why are you getting agitated? I just got really angry with that, and I just refused to get certified by these people. I just refused. So, it's been good for me though, because I don't have qualifications, I don't have licenses, which means that I don't have people telling me I can't say something, otherwise they'll pull my license away.
Sure.
And things like that. So I've operated in the private realm, the realm of qualifications, insurance, fees to subsidies, and that's all in the realm of the private. The public. And I've always wanted to operate in the private realm. They're two different things. And again, that's just personal choice. That's not saying other people should do that or shouldn't do that. That's just how I've, come through to where I am now.
Okay. And I think though, all of us have made a lot of decisions in our lives, and our experiences with, let's say, educated authority. We're getting a comment, I'll read it in a second, are very similar, actually. But right now, from where we sit, it might be like I'm a little bit away from a bachelor's in physics, right? I only have actually 3 undergraduate degrees in the arts, right? 2 of them, and then 1 equivalency, and then 1 master's degree also in the arts, right? And I didn't finish in physics, and people think I'm just some artsy doofus, right? Yeah. And a lot of times the arguments are, well, who are you? Are you a scientist? What are you? Who do you think you are? And I'm like, geez, I'm a few semesters away from a degree in physics. Maybe I should do that, right? And there are some other certifications that I don't have finished. And I think from where we sit now, we're gonna talk about masks. One of my real goals for this discussion was to listen to an excerpt from the Latvian media and ask, is it true? And then to go into a wonderful fictional discussion of my fictional country called Goodland, and Goodland is the good country of Goodland, where we make everything better together. And so we'll do that at the end. We'll just make everything better. We'll have 100 million, a population of 100 million, and we'll just talk about how everything was great and what they did in November and how they, what their scientists came up with. But I'm gonna read this comment. Totally relate. Correcting teachers' spelling, being shamed for asking questions. We saw through all this early on. Yeah, there's a person who's out there on Facebook saying interesting things. Now, okay, so before we, I am going to ask you, how does it feel like I'm going to flip through some, I think my audience can see my screen, and unfortunately you can't, unless I share my screen. I think I can actually share my screen, but let me find. I'm going to just flip through a few. We'll have a few things in our awareness. So I'm going to click share screen, start sharing. And now, do you see yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just from the intro song. I was doing empty hospitals, physical distancing, loopholes. The loopholes need to stop because people were like hanging out on their porches and having a beer with each other. And come on, click. Andrew Cuomo, unbelievable. Orders. I like that's some kind of word. Governor Andrew Cuomo orders all people to wear face coverings in public. Masks are going to be a real topic for us here. Here are 12 scientists. Oh no, this is when Italy came out and said, oh no, our actual death stats, we have 88% of the people not necessarily dying of COVID-19, but dying with COVID-19, and 12% basically being causal. So all the numbers just completely changed. 12 experts questioning the coronavirus pandemic. 10 more experts questioning the pandemic. This one's really interesting, navigating the uncharted, because in this one, Anthony Fauci himself, and this keeps blowing my mind. Here's a little excerpt from him. This suggests that the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may ultimately be more akin to those of a severe seasonal influenza, which has a case fatality rate of approximately 0.1%, or a pandemic influenza, similar to those in 1957 and 68, rather than a disease similar to SARS or MERS, which have case fatality rates of 9 to 10% and 36% respectively. So basically we have Fauci himself saying we're really maxing out at, he's betting on a 0.1% case fatality rate, which is extremely low if you look at the impact that we're having. I'm just flipping through this. U.S. repeals propaganda ban. Make what you want out of that. But I'm looking for something very specific. There you go. Oh no. Now this is about Antoine Béchamp. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. Béchamp.
Yeah, do I?
Right. But you know, the 19th century crank who tried to tell us about the microbiome, right? And that's what they now, there's something about a vitamin C therapy with Richard Cheng. He's an MD and PhD in China. He's doing intravenous vitamin C. He's doing lectures online with professors and other doctors. It's definitely worthwhile checking him out.
Like you already mentioned,
we don't need to listen to him. This is Judy Mikovits saying, "Don't wear a mask," and that poem I'm going to translate. And here that's about sensitivity. That's him saying that this is a Jonas von der Planets, and we will play what he says.
Viruses are not contagious. AIDS is not contagious.
So he says viruses are not contagious. And if people play this back, you can find the references pretty easily. He does a pretty long thing about viruses being more like soaps. And the thing that I wanted to find, and I thought I had the tab up, and maybe it's not. Maybe we don't need to find it. You're also called a crank. You're called an and I'm gonna come back to not sharing, stop sharing. And so before we go forward, how does that feel? Like, how does that feel to be called a crank and to be an anti-vaccine wacko and like, how are you doing with that?
Well, first of all, that's the first I've heard you telling me, because I don't use the internet. I don't get on media of any kind. But second of all, it doesn't bother me in the least. It's one of those things that I was really young when I started to question things. So from the age of 6 or 7, I've been called these names. By the time I was 10, I'd been called a liar, a pig, an asshole, a smartass, and by adults, by my teachers at school,
How,
and other people's parents.
well, how did you wind up not absorbing that? Because I mean, for me, I just basically, kind of shied away. I stopped. I kind of didn't do my best uh, in academics, even though I did very, very well. I still always, my response was just to, we're getting,
Yeah.
yeah, we're getting stars and champagne glasses from a viewer. So how, I
I
mean,
did the same.
yeah,
I shut down as well
yeah,
around my parents, around my family. I completely numbed out and shut down because there was no point in me expressing myself to my family because that's all I would get back is shut down. But I just always had this inner knowing. I just knew there was some, even though when I was younger, I couldn't explain it. I hadn't lived enough to have enough experience to be able to explain what was wrong. But I just had this inner guidance that just told me there's something not right about this. From people's relationships in marriages to a government telling us what to do, to police finding people and telling them what to do, to what was going on in the media. I mean, I think by the time I was 14 or 15, if my parents were watching the news and I could hear it, I would laugh because I would laugh and I would think, how can you not hear what is actually being spat out from that television set? And I couldn't handle that the kids. I mean, I watched TV when I was young, but it was mostly The Simpsons. And the funny thing about The Simpsons is the older
they
you
told
get,
us everything.
you realize that that's the answer to everything.
I
They
know.
put the structure,
I
the
can't.
education system, the political system,
Yeah, they did.
extraterrestrials,
Yes, they did.
the way everything works, they have put it into that show. And it turns out later you find out that Matt Groening's actually what is he? He's in one of those secret society things, or like
Oh,
he's privy to a lot of knowledge that other people wouldn't be, and that's kind of the genius. But they hide it in comedy, so the average person just goes, "Oh, that's just a cartoon," or that's just they laugh at the jokes, but they don't get this embedded education about how the world's actually running. But the other kids were watching TV soap dramas and things, and I'd just be thinking like, why are you? That has nothing to do with real life. So, but at that time I was anyway. There's a to answer your question, it didn't affect me, but to the point where I was hurt. But it did make me just shut myself down from, I cut myself off from a lot of things. But now that I'm older, I couldn't care less what people say about me. The other thing is that it depends on what you focus on because from what I've heard, there's a lot of people saying the things that you just said, but there's a lot of people who have a lot of support for me too. So it's whether or not you focus on those few people that say bad things and not the people that are saying good things and what have you. And I guess I just through experience and getting a bit older that I couldn't care less what people say if they have something negative to say. And to the point where if they ever wanted to have a chat with me, I would willingly sit and talk to them. I don't hate people who are my haters or anything like that. It's like I still look at them like they're just people and they just have a different way of viewing things. And if they ever wanted to talk, I'd talk to them. So
sure.
that's how I feel.
I don't. I don't think that I'm quite that far along. I mean, the way that it works is like, okay, if there are people that are saying that viruses are like these little dragons that are running around and they're parasitic and they want to eat you, right? It's a realistic analogy, I guess. We live, we decay. Vultures come, and vultures need to eat the dead flesh. Maybe that's what viruses are like. And like, okay, well, if they're like that, then all of us hiding and wearing masks kind of makes sense because we don't want to feed this particular breed of dragon or vulture that happens to have popped up somewhere or somebody made, and it's like this mechanized dragon. And if it doesn't get to eat, it's going to die, right? So there's logic to that perception. But then when you go, oh, but wait, there's a whole nother group of scientists that say that when our cells are stressed, they excrete these exosome things, and when you look at the slices from the microscopic pictures, they're these little balls, and maybe maybe we're mistaken. What's challenging is when you have authoritarian arrogance on one side, and you don't have the possibility for, I would call it, scientific coexistence or peaceful coexistence, where we recognize that we're people that are just exploring, and we have an authoritarian stance right now. I'm not allowed to wear a mask. I'm not allowed to go into a store without a mask. And so now what I'm going to, and that is very troubling for me. I'm going to read a poem in Latvian, then I'm going to translate it, and then we're going to do some Latvian media excerpts, and our game is going to be, is it true? Okay. Uz gudriem vīriem neatsaucies, pats visā iegremdēties traucies. Kas pats zin atrast labu ļaunu, tas pasauli zin celt par jaunu. It translates into, don't rely on the wisdom of others, no matter how wise they may appear. Dive into everything yourself fully. For those who know how to distinguish between good and evil, fact and fiction, knowledge and belief, falsity and truth, those know how to rebuild a true world. It's an Easter poem.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because Latvian is a very condensed language, and you can pack meaning in just a few words. Now, I'm going to have to take my headphones off so that you can hear, because apparently the audio isn't routed through, and we're going to listen to about 60 seconds of Latvian media.
Ko lai tagad ar tevi dara? Vērienīga mākslas filma divās daļās, kas uzņemta glaznainajā Jordānijā. Svētā ģimene. Svētdien 9:00 vakarā LTV1 un replay.lv. Šis ir laiks, kad spējai sadarboties ir īpaša nozīme.
Un ar to mēs nedomājam strādāšanu plecs pie pleca.
Gluži otrādi. Šoreiz vislabākā iespēja saliedēties ir distancēties.
Tikai tā mēs varam parūpēties viens par otru.
Žurnāls kā operatīva dienesta un apkalpošais personāls šobrīd strādā ārkārtas režīmā.
Lai jūs zinātu, kas notiek, arī mēs nevaram vairs strādāt kopā drošības apsvērumu dēļ, un tas ir pārbaudījums.
Bet mēs zinām, ka distance no kolēģiem ir tā, kas šoreiz palīdz.
Darba apstākļi šobrīd nav vienkārši, tāpēc neradiet lietu risku operatīvo dienestu un arī žurnālistu darbu.
Neapdraudiet tos, kuri rūpējas par jūsu drošību.
Tikai esot atsevišķi, mēs varam uzvarēt šo situāciju kopā.
Paliec mājās.
So, it's very powerfully done, and the international words, I'm thinking, were you able to hear them?
Yeah.
Right. Distancēties is to make sure that you're, that you distance yourself from people. The only way that we can beat this together is by being apart. Even us, the media representatives, we can't work shoulder to shoulder. So, in order to get through this crisis, stay home. Is it true? Do we have to distance ourselves from each other?
No. No, that's one of the worst things we could actually do. It's very obvious, even though I couldn't understand the language, it's very obvious. And when you say, it's really forcefully, it's like a real forceful and strong message. I mean, this is the way they use programming. They're very good at knowing how to influence a human mind. It's like what all of their resources go into. There's a lot of money behind what they do, and it's all connected on a global level. So Scientifically, though, there is nothing to back up the idea that we should be distancing ourselves from each other. You only have to just take, you gave the stats of influenza and things before. So why is it that people have never had to go and wear masks into stores when influenza can kill far more people than, this coronavirus has apparently killed, and those numbers aren't even real anyway. So, why now? So, it just makes no sense. Most people just don't have the presence of mind to just look back and follow what's gone in the past, and how does that relate to what's going on now? It's called it's very easy to put an idea in somebody's mind, and then that idea just plays out. Even something like they say that with climate change that everything's getting hotter, but if you look at the records, it's not actually getting hotter. But somebody will watch on the TV and they'll say, oh, everything's we're all gonna die, and then they're sweating and they go, oh my god, I'm sweating, it's climate change. And you just go, it's summer, right? Like, you remember 12 months ago when you sweated in this same spot, and 12 months before that, and 12 months before that? Don't you remember sweating in summer? But they're influenced by what they've just heard on the TV. It's so there's just that power of influence. And it's the same thing with this coronavirus. People are saying, don't go outdoors, don't go around anybody, and make sure you wear a mask and gloves and sanitizer and everything. But nobody's asking, well, how come you didn't tell us to do that when SARS was around and influenza, which every year kills 500,000 to 1 million people? Like, why aren't you telling us that? Why are you telling us that now? And people just don't seem to be asking these. I mean, some of us are asking it, but the majority of people who are buying into it and staying indoors and looking at you like you're evil if you're not wearing a mask, why aren't they asking these questions? And that's the funny part about all of this.
Well, one of the questions that I've been asking is, I think there is an answer to it, and I think it's fairly logical to at least postulate that, that this reversed quarantine, like healthy people need to, the reverse quarantine social distancing is what I've been calling it. I don't know. That it was invented recently. Someone just made it up. So I asked, who's made it up? And about the Latvian media, the thing that really makes me very emotional about it is I know some of these people, right? I'm friends with some of the people that are in Latvian media. I respect them. I think they're wonderful, wonderful people. And it really brings tears to my, it really makes me very emotional to say a guy that I was in a seminar with, who led the seminar. I don't want to make it that specific because then people are like, oh yeah, he's talking about so-and-so. And then this is going to go viral in Latin. Like, viral in Latvian media, there are 2 million Latvians. There's 1.9, it's got a population of 1.93 million, right? There's 1.2 million Latvian speaking people, right? Viral for Latvian is like 20,000 views. Yeah. Right? It's like nothing, right? But everybody knows. So they're like, he was talking about so-and-so. But yeah. We did a seminar on aggressive questions, like a seminar section, where, everybody knows that this is how everybody knows that viruses are transmissible from person to person, Tom. Why do you think it's different? Like, we did this in like a seminar, right? And or like, if you're talking to the Minister of Health, you could do it the opposite way. You could be like, all the smart scientists know that you can't catch a virus. It's like trying to say, can you catch a fart? That's ridiculous. You can't catch a fart. What kind of a, Minister of Health are you? Like, I went through exercises like this with a few fairly prominent people in Latvian media. And I'm like, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? I know you. Like, I know you. Like, I hang out with you. Why aren't you asking? You're the one on the TV. Ask. Ask who made this up. Ask, why are we doing this? Ask, does disease transmissibility really work this way? And what really, and I'm going to read an excerpt now that just, I can't believe it. This is from the CDC, This is not published yet. It's a pre-published thing. It's supposed to be published in May 2020. And it says, given that influenza is believed to spread from person to person, mostly through close contact, there is a clear rationale for preventing contact between infectious and susceptible persons. However, we found limited scientific evidence to support the effectiveness of this intervention in the community. There's not a hint of a lie in there. Given that influenza is believed to spread from person to person, they say it right there that the policy is based on belief. It just, I can't. For me, it makes me, that makes me short of breath.
Yeah.
So, okay.
See, people don't see. You've taught yourself how to hear or read what's not being said. Other people only read what's being said. So by them saying believe, what they're not saying is we actually have made this up. And we're just basing it on an agenda that we want to push because of it, because they haven't actually said that it is transmissible. You pick that up straight away. Most people don't seem to pick that up.
Yeah. Okay. So I think let's do a few translations of audience questions. So this is first in Latvian. Viņš apgalvo, ka ar vīrusiem vispār mēs nevaram viens otru pielipināt. Absurdais apgalvojums liek apšaubīt visu citu, ko šis cilvēks varētu teikt. Paldies, nav jautājumu. Oh, that's funny. Glad I read that. What is apgalvo? He maintains, preaches, says in he around his head says to us. Anyway, his opinion is, he states, let's do states. He states, it's one of these questions. He states that viruses, that we can't, and then the German words anstecken, transmit, infect. He says that these viruses aren't even contagious at all. That's just nuts. So because he says something so crazy, I don't have to listen to anything else this person has to say. Thank you. I've got no questions for him. So what do you say to that audience person?
Well, that's totally fine. Nobody has to listen. If they don't have questions, there's nothing to say back. But it's it's interesting that see, that's an example of a mind that's just completely closed. And generally, by the time we reach the age of 20 to 21, that's the age where a lot of our belief systems are just really. It's very, very hard to change somebody's mind after that time. It's one of the reasons I'm really interested in doing education for younger people, because their minds are very open. People past a certain age, there's this sense of security that is entwined with people's belief systems. And again, this is like when I was a kid, I saw how much beliefs just completely held people back from living their lives. And for me, I always wanted to walk through life not holding any beliefs. If I did find a belief for myself, I would actually go out of my way to find evidence to the contrary, because I had to find out whether what I believed in actually held any merit, or if it was I was just joining imaginary dots. I don't know, so I believe. And when people have a certain tone, you can tell the guy's tone. I think you did it really well. Even if
it's a lady. It's a lady.
Oh, okay. Even if she had have asked a question and I gave an answer, I already know she wouldn't listen, because by the way that she's phrased it as a question. If she had asked a question, how can you catch a virus then? Or how can you not catch a virus? She's asking a question technically, but she's phrasing it as a statement. So whenever I talk to people in person, for example, if somebody says, oh, well, I thought it was different, how could you not catch a virus? That's a question. But if somebody goes, oh, well, how can't you catch it then? That's not a question. That's phrased a question, but that is most definitely not a question. And to those people, I don't really engage in conversation. So it's one of those things that you can never, this is, I think, an important lesson for people, because a lot of people start to learn a lot more about themselves and the world, and they think, oh, wow, I should share this with other people, because this could help bring their level of stress and fear and everything else down. It would improve their lives. But what most people find is when you offer more I don't want to use the word truth, but you just offer a broader perspective, right? Just a wider, more open-minded point of view. Most people are fearful of that, and they shut it down. They don't want to hear. So that's a reflection of them, not you. And it can be very draining if you get upset about that and you think, no, but you have to know this. You have to know more about viruses because it will help you. But unless they're asking, you can't help somebody that isn't asking for help. So it just doesn't really serve much purpose trying to convince people of anything that they don't want to be convinced about. You kind of got to let people live their own lives to a certain extent. Yes, if people are asking, for sure, help people if they want to improve their knowledge on things. But if they're not asking, for me, the expression I like is don't try to shine a light into a room with the doors closed. The light's not going to get in, so don't waste it. So if people open that door, sure, shine the light in and let them see. But yeah, so I mean, obviously she didn't have a question, so there's nothing to answer. But I just thought I would mention that because I think a lot of people do get frustrated when dealing with people who are not actually asking a question and who just don't want to know and who are very set in their ways. And I think in the first video that I made, I said that nature doesn't care what you believe. And another way of saying, another expression is that we live and die by our beliefs. A lot of people hold on to their belief systems so heavily that it can be the death of them. I think it's really important if people really want to live their best life possible is to try to let go of as many beliefs as possible, because a lot of them are just ingrained from early in life, and the only purpose they serve was to make you feel safe. But as you get older, you can let those go because you can realize that you're always safe if you are just trusting in the intelligence that runs through all of life. Once you find that, you don't have to believe in things because you just have an innate feeling of safety and security without having to grasp at straws, where everybody has to wear a mask so that I can be safe and I don't get sick because of you. You're not wearing a mask, That kind of completely illogical, irrational, and emotional behavior is only reminiscent of somebody whose mind is closed off and they're clutching to a belief system that they think is keeping them safe. And it's also the reason that I don't get angry at people like that, because I see in them a child who has not been able to grow into an adult because whatever they latched onto, whatever belief system they latched onto to feel safe, an adult doesn't do that, a child does that. So I see in them that part of them that is just still a 4-year-old or a 10-year-old that never got to move past that age because of some traumatic experience. So I don't laugh at people like that or get angry at them. I just kind of have some compassion for them. If they ever wanted to find out, if they ever asked, I would explain what the best that I can explain. Not saying that I'm right or wrong either way, but I would explain and give them the time. But when people don't ask, I don't.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's interesting that we've, in a sense, found each other. My dad trained me that way, and what I haven't let go of is his constant, very loving, but also sometimes overbearing, but very rigorous training on, is it true? Is that a belief, or do you know? I mean, from like 0 to 2016, like to when he passed away, like that was his thing. Is it true what you're saying? He's a biblical scholar. And now what's happening is something that we can kind of set as an intention also for our discussion, is what can people do that have that kind of intellect or spirit or lifestyle when 70%, 80%, 95% of their surroundings don't, and we live in democracies, and then they have guns and regulations, and to go into the store, you have to obey. And you can cite doctors that say, look, me putting this on, as a matter of fact, I need oxygen. So to stay healthy, I need oxygen, first of all. Yeah, I need to be able to breathe. Next, pus, gross, it's going to get disgusting, right? The mask is going to get gross. but you have to have a mask to go, and they have guns and fines. So in a sense, not shining the light into the closed door is one analogy, but they're closing the door on the room that all of us are in. I'm going to read the next question because it's a different type of question, and you actually already mentioned this kind of person, and I'll go ahead and make it a little bit bigger as well as I read it in Latvian and then translate it. Par aplipināšanos, about contagion and getting sick and being able to, about the contagiousness of disease. Kopš vairāk kārt saskāros, kā medicīna bojā veselību, esmu uz dabīgās atvesļošanās ceļa. Okay, multiple times I encountered that in standard medicine, that my health was, or that health in general was depleted. So I went on a natural path of healing. Taču pirms gada diviem piedzīvoju diezgan tieši, gaidot gaitinī apmeklējumu, kāds cits cilvēks diezgan traki šķaudījās un šņaukājās, varēju redzēt, ka ir kāds iekaisums slimība. But about 2 years ago, I was waiting in a hallway, and a stranger really seriously sneezed and sniffled, and you could see that the person had an infection and was sick. Parasti man tā no malas slimības neņem, bet šoreiz otrā dienā pamazām pielavījās saaugstēšanās pazīmes un noslimu nedēļu pusotru. Usually I don't catch illnesses. Usually I don't get sick, right? But that time, on the second day, slowly I noticed that I was getting a cold, and then I got sick for about a week and a half. Of course, I'm just translating directly. Well, protams, dziedinājos ar C vitamīnu devām, ēteriskām eļļām un tējām. Kā var neaplipināties, ja piedzīvoju to uz savas ādas? Of course, I took vitamin C, I used etheric oils and teas, but how can we not be getting sick from person-to-person contact? Pilipinatis is a great word. It's a stick to from me to give to stick to you, right? It's a really good word. Because what came from me stuck to you, right? How can what came from me sticks to you not happen if I experienced it with my own skin, with my own body? That's the question.
Well, okay, there's a few ways to handle that. So, first of all, that's what you would call mixing up correlation and causation. That's the same as saying that 5 people in a room have a cold, and 2 other people didn't have a cold, and they were eating apples, and the other people were eating carrots. Therefore, if you eat carrots, you get a cold, and if you eat apples, you don't get a cold. It's like it's just a surface. You're trying to correlate something that's happening on the surface, but you're not looking at all the underlying factors that also contribute to our state of being at any one time. So a better way to look at that, though, is have you ever got a cold by not being around people? And most people have had that experience. If you work yourself into the ground, you don't sleep properly, you're treating yourself badly, even if you don't go around people, can you get a cold?
Yeah, I think the answer to that, yeah, I think everybody would say yes. But I can also say that I have had the impression that I've caught a cold from someone.
Yeah. So I'll explain that in a second. But before I explain that, you've also got to ask the question, have you been around people who have coughed and sneezed and you haven't got a cold?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's had that experience too, right? So when your listener is saying, I've had that experience and so therefore that's fact, what they're doing is they're isolating what appears to be a correlation without actually delving into the ins and outs of what actually transpired. So what happens is our bodies communicate all the time. When you look at the idea, which was popularized by Béchamp and guys, and who else? Steiner, And people from before them, from the 17 and 1800s, well before them, 1600s even as well, people were saying that it is the terrain, the internal terrain, that governs the health of an individual. So it's not that microbes or these bugs and germs are making us sick, it's that these bugs and germs are helping us to clean ourselves out when our internal environment becomes sick and toxic. It's completely opposite the way of when Louis Pasteur brought out the germ theory, which just happened to sell trillions of dollars worth of medicine after that was bought up, that was taken on. So if you have a cold and I come out and I hang around you and then I have a cold, if you look at it from the point of view of a clean out, then maybe because our bodies are, I guess I should explain it like this, our bodies are in constant communication with the environment. That means they're also in constant communication with people around us, animals around us. The water we drink carries information. It tells our cells what the environment is like. The type of light that hits the back of our irises, that gives information about what our environment is like. It triggers reactions within the body. It's how even if you were blind and you couldn't feel anything, you couldn't feel temperature, which some people have that condition, your body still knows if it's summer or winter, because there's just this constant communication. So what that means is that our bodies know when it's a good time to undergo a clean out. It's when things like, everything in nature knows when it's a time to kind of close off and when it's time to flourish. Autumn and winter close off, spring and summer flourish. And this is why we tend to have things like cold and flu seasons. They generally happen in a response to climatic and environmental circumstances. Doesn't mean all the time, but the majority of that activity happens in these times. You can definitely still get a cold in summer, but that is because the body needs to clean itself out. So what happens with this line of communication is that if you're in the same room as me, and you're in a really bad mood and you just don't like me, you don't want to be around me and you don't want me around you, I can feel that. Everybody's had that feeling of not being wanted in a room, and everybody knows what that feeling is like of being welcomed. It feels good to be around it. It's because your cells are, just to keep it simple, are buzzing in a certain way. They're buzzing in a way that makes you feel good, or they're buzzing in a way that makes you feel, I don't feel good here. So that's an example of how cells communicate and gives us information based off what is happening in another person. So if you're going through a cleansing stage, that can signal to me and my body now might be a safe time to also undergo a cleanse. So again, if 5 people had been around that guy that coughed and sneezed, I can guarantee you that not all 5 people would have got a cold the next day. So that alone should get people to ask questions. Well, if that is the case, I got a cold and those 3 people didn't, but that other guy did, then is it really contagious? Why would I get a cold and somebody else not get a cold? So then you have to start asking deeper questions. Well, what's going on in both of our bodies? Does my body need to clean itself out? Or did their body? Why didn't it? And then you're asking deeper questions, and then deeper questions, and then deeper questions again. And this is the most common mistake people make, is to stop asking questions. They see 2 things, they join the dots, and they just go, I've figured it out. But they don't realize that there is so much more underlying these 2 dots that they're imaginarily joining. And so they miss the deeper wisdom and things that are there to be had if you kept asking questions to get down those layers. Did that answer your question, or do you want me to explain it differently?
No, I think that's fantastic. And we have a few comments, and right as you were speaking, someone wrote "vibration of truth," smiley face, heart, heart, heart. And we have, "You're so right here. Everything clicked into place for me when I learned the last bits of what I'd been experiencing for myself for years, and I looked back in my sickness and saw that I'd never caught a cold. I was just sick in February in a house of 5, and not a single one of them got sick. This was an internal job through and through, and always coincides with a toxic environment and individual susceptibility. In my case, moving to my house in Jordan with family, they have a toxic mold situation which I'm sensitive to. and I get the allergies / the cold. It's unique to me and it's detoxing. I've never caught a cold, so that little shift of perspective can change everything about your associations. And well, we have a world fake show. I don't know. We're getting. I think we have a hater. Well,
some people are paid to do that, right?
That's not a this.
It's some people's jobs to go onto internet sites that are spreading better information, and they're actually paid to have a go and try to influence the people that are listening.
Yeah.
It's quite...
Well, I mean, it is, and we're basically, it's a pretty serious challenge to say, okay, we're now going to ask people to change their worldview. And I mean, would you say that this is a little bit of a, heliocentric versus geocentric solar system universe type of moment for humanity? Like, are we just wrong about disease transmission?
I mean, I'm only saying from my experience, and this is what I've said it, I think, in a couple of other podcasts I've done in the last week, but it's very hard for somebody to see something different if they don't have a reason to see it differently. So part of the reason that I have seen things differently is that I got really sick and I got really desperate. So it forced me to ask deeper questions. If people never have that, if people are never put in really tough situations where the medical system is not helping or is making them sicker, they don't have to ask these questions. And in my experience, I found that anybody who has learned how to question things differently, sure, some people just do, but the majority of people, 80 or 90% of people, have learned that from losing a loved one, losing their health, becoming broke, living on the streets for a bit. It's like having a car accident, nearly dying. It's these events that's what's been the catalyst to go, hang on, there's something else to life. There's something not right about the way we're told things happen in the world. And if you haven't had that situation, you haven't really had a need to ask questions. So I don't think, and humans are innately drawn to convenience, whatever's easiest. We don't like change. The ego just loves comfort. So unless you've had an experience that separated you from your ego where you can see the difference, it's very, very hard to get somebody who is in that egocentric state to just see something different, because they actually physically cannot see it. It's like trying to explain the color blue to somebody who's never seen color. It's almost impossible to do. So you just have to let people walk around and do what they've got to do, and not try to not try to hit them over the head with what we think. But yeah, look, to answer your question though as well, the more you look back in history, the more you realize things haven't actually changed. There's always been the people who knew better and knew differently, and there's always been the majority that just did not, and that would burn people at the stake for saying something like, you can't catch a cold. In the old days, it would be stoned, hung, burnt alive, whatever. And then 60 years later, people will go, oh, that guy that we burnt alive, turns out he was actually right.
Oops.
And they go,
gotta wash your hands while delivering babies. We put him in an asylum. Oh, well.
So, I think it's always been this way. I think it's an opportunity I don't think life's ever meant to be simple or easy. I think whatever we're faced with in our lives and in society today is an opportunity for us to learn more about ourselves. And it's not, the more you kind of move through things, it's not what happens out there that matters, it's what's happening inside. So you can see the events in the world. I know a lot of things are frustrating for you at the moment, like the mask things.
I'm very agitated about that.
That's frustrating to me too, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I also see that as an opportunity for me to how I can grow as a result of that. Because we don't grow if things are just easy all the time, and we don't learn more about the world. You're now learning a lot more about the people that you have previously respected, and then something else comes along that's just a step up from how life was 2 months ago, and now you see whose minds are actually able to run with that, and whose minds are just not anywhere near that. it's a real learning experience about how humans operate, and that in itself is great. You can't learn that from a book.
Right.
You can only learn that from experiencing it. So, you know, that's not to say that it's great and it's not, you know, there's no frustration there, but there is always something to be gotten from an external situation. But at least I've found that for myself anyway.
Sure. And I think we could do another game because, so how about this? You've decided that you're just going to try things out and you're going to go into one of these stores without a mask. Okay? Are you in the store without a mask? I'm going to arrest you now. Okay, buddy, you're under arrest for not wearing a mask. Or no, first we'll do the store people. You need to wear a mask. You're in the store. You can't buy strawberries. You need to put on a mask.
Why do I need to wear
It's a city ordinance. You need to put it on the mask. It's a law. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Okay, which law is that?
It's called the COVID-19 law. This COVID-19 Gesetz. It was passed on Monday. Today's Saturday. You know, you're in day 6 of this law. Everybody should know. And no one else, you know, everybody else is wearing their mask. You need to wear a mask if you want to buy these strawberries. I can't sell you the strawberries if you don't put on your mask.
Okay, so that wasn't gazetted then. If that happened 6 days ago, was that gazetted?
It's a gazette. It's a law. It's
Okay.
passed into law.
Okay. Okay. So that must be an act then, right? It's like part of an act, is it?
Yes, it's a law. It's a gazette. It's a law.
Okay.
I'm a shopkeeper right now. You're you. You can be whoever you want.
Am I a man? Okay. Have you got some evidence that I'm not a man?
No, I don't have any evidence that you're not a man. I just can't sell you. I just look, sir. I know that you look very nice, actually, and I'm really sorry. I want to sell you these strawberries, but I can't. My store is going to get fined 2,000 euros if I sell you these strawberries, and the cops are going to come. So I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Now there's more employees. They all have masks. They're all coming on to you, and they're all like this. He's not wearing a mask. You have to wear a mask.
Okay. So you don't want
I can't believe it.
problem?
Look, we want to sell you the strawberries, but you have to wear a mask.
Okay, well.
This happened to me, but this is the very realistic depiction. You have to wear a mask.
So wait 1 second. I'm already in the store, aren't I? I'm already here, aren't I?
Look,
So whether
I'm gonna have to call the police if you don't put on a mask.
Well, you can call the police, but what I'm asking is, if I leave right now or in 30 seconds, I'm already in the store. Is there really any difference?
Okay, sir. I'm now a cop, sir. You disobeyed the ordinance, and I have to give you a fine. Here's your slip. Come outside. Step outside. The guns are very, very prominent. They're like whoever designed the Austrian police officer's gun.
You're a police
Now I'm a police officer, and man, their guns. This is a capo for a guitar. Their guns are just like, hi, I'm a gun. I can kill you. They're very well designed. They're very well designed uniforms. So his gun's there, and he's standing. Sir, you're gonna have to come outside.
Is that gun loaded?
Yes, of course it's loaded.
It is. Well, that's assault. You're assaulting me.
I'm not assaulting you, sir. You're gonna.
That's okay. Look, I'm gonna do what you say, but only under duress and threats of menace. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna report you because you're assaulting me right now. What did you say your name was? Officer who?
Schmidt.
Officer Schmidt. Now, have you got some ID there, Officer?
Of course I have my ID. I'm happy to give you my ID number. My ID number is XYZ. I'm Officer Schmidt, and I'm just executing the law because that's my job.
Okay, and have you got a business card on there, Officer Schmidt?
Yes, actually, I can. I can give you my ID. I will give you my card. You just step outside of the store. We're going to get some extra people here, and we'll talk about this. And you know what? Actually, I understand what you're talking about. I actually hear you. You know, like, I don't want to be doing this. This is not what I signed up for. Just step outside, and we'll take care of it. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. Yeah. Here's your ticket, buddy.
So I tell you what, Officer Schmidt, I can see that, you know, what you just told me. I see that you know what's going on. Tell you what, how about you you go and get me some strawberries, and we'll walk.
Yeah, I tried to get them to get me strawberries too. I tried to get the storekeepers to do my shopping for me, and they're like, "We're not going to do your shopping for you." I'm like, "Oh darn."
Yeah.
I think Officer Schmidt just got told by his supervisor to go away, and now you're getting, you've got this piece of paper now. Schmidt's gone.
Well, the thing is, if it was me, I wouldn't let him give that piece of paper because they don't know who to give it to. I wouldn't tell them what my name is.
You have to give me. Look, if you don't give us your name, you're taking you in the car, by force.
Yeah, but see, if they did that, I'd let them, because what I would do is I would charge them. Like in Australia, the guy that taught me law, he's got 5 cops fired and he's got 6 magistrates fired for being out and won money for it. So we have case law in Australia where if somebody falsely arrests you or falsely detains you, you can charge their indemnity insurers the money. So there's a case called Dillon versus Plenty in Australia. This is where a police officer went to a guy's property and wanted to arrest his 15-year-old daughter. The guy said, "You're trespassing on my property, get off." He said that 3 times to the police officer, who didn't leave. So this guy went and got a plank of wood from behind his shed and he belted the police officer with him. Now, he got arrested for that because he assaulted the police officer, but when that went to court, he won $600,000 because the police officer was trespassing. So if a police officer wants to arrest me in a store, first of all, I'll make sure that they're assaulting me by threatening me with their weapon or whatever.
Isn't that just a threat? How is a threat assault?
Yeah, because any kind of threat is assault. It doesn't have to be physical assault. There's many different kinds of assault. There's aggravated assault. There's just a lot of different types. So the threatening somebody, like, if you don't do this, I'll do this to you. That's a threat. That is assault. So if you know what you're doing...
It's called Nötigung in German, and it can be called like blackmail or something like that, but it's called Nötigung in German.
Okay, yeah. So either way, you can charge people with assault for doing that. So if that was me, I would stand my ground and make them explain that they have authority to arrest me. If it got to the stage where... This is the thing in life, you have to know when to pick your battles, right? If you know you're going to lose, don't really bother. If I was in that situation, I would let them arrest me. I would say this is going to be a false arrest. I would state that, and I would let them take me to the police station, but I wouldn't give them my name or address. I would get their details. As soon as they process me and kick me out, which they would have to do within they can't hold you for more than 3 hours, I'd walk out. I'd walk straight back to them with a notice, and I'd say, "Here's your, I'm taking you to court, or here's your fine. I'm charging you with assault, false arrest, false detainment, impeding my. You can't actually impede someone's journey. You have to have cause to arrest somebody." There's all these codes that they would have violated, and I would just hand them that, and I'd say, "I'll see you in court. Let's see if you still got a job next week."
Sure.
That's what I would do.
And
so,
I have a Sneedza, is the audio a little bit better now? Because I got a comment on the audio. I actually took off.
Oh yeah. I could hear my voice come back when you were fiddling with.
Right.
It's gone now.
And it's gone now. Okay, so there's maybe we have a bit of an improvement with the audio. Well, the thing is that they're actually following the law by arresting me, but I'm basically saying that getting a bunch of comments now.
What you'll find though, Dinus, is that it's not a law. It's an act.
They passed it as a law, and then they voted on it, and it became law. If it's there, I had to deal with this. Like some agencies, they issue their own. They're not even regulations. He has a little echo now. Yeah, we're gonna have to deal with some. I mean, was it better if it's? Just tell me if it was better before while I had headphones on, or if it's better now. Like some of the agencies, they issue their own rules and they're not laws. And I had that with the Department of Children and Family Services, and that was really, really rigorous because the police then think that they're following the law, but the police are actually listening to what they just made up in some meeting. And then when you compare what they made up in some meeting with the law, you wind up actually seeing that, at least for these specific laws, much better, thank you. Okay. So we have better audio. You wind up finding out that the laws are very well written. Like the when you look at the laws are very protective.
What you'll find though is that there was no they do this in Australia too. But what you'll find is when you look into it, they have no authority to create the law. So when you question that, what is your source of authority to create and enforce this law? They don't have it. So it's digging a little deeper, but you'll find in Australia anyway, Germany and Austria and European countries do operate differently, but not that much differently. So you'll find that anything created that quickly, doesn't have a source of authority to go through with it. There's actually a lot that needs to be put in place before something is properly gazetted, voted on. There's a referendum, which means that at least 50% of the population has to vote that in to be a real law. You'll find that none of this happens, and none of this has happened for the last few decades. You get councils create their own. They just create their own systems. They're all corporates too. They're all corporations. Every country is a registered corporation. Like Australia is a corporation registered in the United States. So technically, anybody operating as a government entity on our soil is a foreign corporation and has no power over us. Now, it's different in your countries, but at the same time, the same principles apply because your countries are also registered corporations. That means everything comes under the realm of commerce, and there are specific ways that can be put into place as a law. And you'll find, if you dig deep enough into your own country's laws, that unless they constitute harming somebody or damaging their property, then it's not a law. And it only applies to a person. If you get any of these laws or codes or statutes, whatever they are, and look them up, it'll say in your own language, it'll say any person not wearing a mask, any person that does this. If a person does this, they will be liable for this amount of money. So then what you have to do is you have to get a legal dictionary in your own language, and you have to look up the definition of a person. And where it says person, it'll say a ratepayer, a taxpayer, a driver, a citizen, a resident. It'll say an entity, a corporation, a trustee, a beneficiary. There'll be a list this long. Nowhere in that will it say a man or a woman. The reason for that is that every country in the world now operates under a commercial corporate structure. So they created, governments are forsworn to protect their people, but governments created persons. A person is a dead entity, it's a name. People are living beings, people are men and women. So it's this little change in language that is the key here. And none of these, what you're talking about, you have to wear a mask, you have to do this, that only applies to persons. And if you could take that to a court and you just have to say to them, look, do you have some sort of evidence that I'm not a man or a woman, if that's the case? And you have to ask it 3 times, and eventually they'll say, well, yeah. So you go, okay, great, we've got agreement then. I'm a man, right? Okay, great, we've got agreement. Then you say, now your source of authority that I have to wear a mask, that's an act, isn't it? Or that's a law, that's this law here. Have you got that there? Can you read that out to me? And they'll say, yeah, any person not wearing a mask will get a certain euro fine. And you go, okay, great. So we've already established that I'm a man. Your law or act there seems to apply to a person, doesn't it? So do you have some evidence that apply? Like, how does that act or how does that law apply to me?
Sure. As this judge, I'm going to say that there are 2 types of, men. There are men and women. Those are persons. That's why we didn't want to make it sexist, and it applies to you just like it applies to everybody else. Guilty as charged.
No, that's if they tried to do that, they'd lose their job. Because they just contradicted themselves. They said,
I got to get you out of my courtroom because I might lose my job. You're guilty as charged.
That's the thing. They will lose their job if they did that, because you would only have to put in a complaint with the transcripts of what happened in that courtroom to the in our country it's the Governor General. Then in your country it'd be different, but you just have to lodge that with them. That judge would be out of a job a week later. It's happened several times in our country. The magistrates have tried to rule against you when they have no grounds to. They lose their job. And you can win compensation settlement for that as well. So if that happened, you would actually, if you play it right, win a lot of money. But nobody's going to do that. A judge is only there as an administrator. In a courtroom, this is probably stuff that people don't really need to know, but in a courtroom you have the judge, that's the administrator, you have the complainant and the defendant. So all you have to do is direct your questions to the prosecutor. Whoever's prosecuting you, which would be the police or whatever, their minister would be in there. You direct your questions to them, and they don't answer, and you say, and then you can address the judge. You say, well, look, Your Honour, we have agreement. He's just told me that I'm a man, and he hasn't told me how his act applies to me. So why are we even here? This is a waste of my time. It's a waste of the court's time. Now, what decisions is that, you know, like you just say to the judge, you know, when can I pick up a court order in my favour? You're always directing this at the prosecution, because they're the ones that will incriminate themselves, and they're the ones, when you ask the right questions, that they will prove they have no case against you. This has been done. You know, I don't have a lot of knowledge of your countries, but in our country, this has happened a lot of times, where the prosecution will lose, and the prosecution will have to pay full costs and damages to the person that they were trying to prosecute, but clearly had no case against. So this is something that this has been years of learning for me. You don't just learn this. You don't learn about law in a podcast, you know. But it's good for people to at least get in their mind that if you are a man or a woman, you are born free and you are born with inherent rights. And actually, you're born with dominion, which is greater than having rights. As soon as you agree to being your name, which is a corporate entity, and as soon as you agree to coming under statutory terms, then you come under the realm of the public, and you have benefits and privileges. Benefits and privileges can only get you so far. Rights override everything, and it's this element of learning that, first of all, not learning, knowing that you have inherent rights. No government organisation, no one can tell you what to do. If you come from knowing that, then the rest starts to make sense. It's the same as understanding that you're not going to catch these imaginary diseases of people. When you come from that place, you're a lot more powerful as an individual, and then you can learn the things to say and the ways to say them. But at first, you need to understand, if you, in your heart, don't believe that you're free and that you don't have rights, it kind of doesn't matter. You can only go so far with learning the words, you know, prove this, prove that, give the evidence of this, give that. That's just words, but it's a weak person saying the words, and you will eventually, I guess, not win. But if you're coming from a place where you know who you are, you know that you have rights, you are born with rights and nobody can take those rights away, that makes you a lot more powerful. So when you're saying these words, you're saying, you prove that. Where's your evidence? You prove that to me. Show me your evidence. Show me your source of authority. That's coming from a place that's very, very strong, and these people will crumble under that. But if you're weak in saying those things, they're trained, you know, they won't let you do that. They'll just go, oh, yeah, and they'll push you back, and you'll just, it's crumbling back to being a weak. Oh, okay, here's my ID, here's my name, I live here. You know, and I don't want to I don't want to give people no hope in that regard, but it's just, you know, I don't want people to think that they can't stand up for themselves because they're not strong inside. It's just something that you develop, and at least if you can have it as part of your conscious awareness that you are free and you are born free. It's just that there's this big illusion of having a government that controls us. That is an illusion. So as soon as you can learn that is the illusion, over time you can develop enough internal strength and power to be able to, you know, withstand that. But again, you know, I have to say that takes time for most people.
Sure. And I mean, I would even say, unfortunately, I think it's actually 2 instances of things that I had to deal with went all the way up to the Austrian Supreme Court.
Yep.
So, and you said it's true, you don't learn the law in a podcast. You learn the law when the Austrian version of the IRS tries to collect 71,000 euros of fictitious debt. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
So they just wanted fake money. They wanted made up money. And I said no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That took 3 years. So yeah, but still, you know, where this is leading to is this is leading to, like, I'm seeing, well, one solution that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put on the mask, right? Mm-hmm. Because fundamentally, I feel like that says that if I do it, no one can assess their own health. And even if I accept being contagious, I'm also then saying I'm too stupid to know whether I'm endangering anyone when I go outside. Everybody's too stupid, and when you're, and also I don't even, when we're quote unquote asymptomatic, that might be when we sort of feel something coming on. I think people probably already know that they're getting that they're under the weather. But the point is that I'm then saying we're too stupid to monitor ourselves, monitor our own health. Because of that, now, because of some whatever dumb people or whatever, we can't shake hands anymore. We can't hug our friends on the street. You know, we can't be within 2 meters of each other. There's a part of me that says that's just utterly insane. That's such a radical difference to how we've lived as a species that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense to me that we can maintain any kind of immunity with this current version of social distancing. I mean, I actually think that there's sort of a cheap way for me to go, because apparently if you have a pre-existing condition and you don't have to reveal what your pre-existing condition is, then you can just not wear a mask. You can say you have a pre-existing condition, and I could just say my pre-existing condition is sanity, and not wear a mask. And I'll go in and I'll say, look, I have a pre-existing condition and I can't wear a mask. And then the question is going to be, are they going to call the cops? Well, if the cops come, I can say, you know what, I've got a pre-existing condition. It's called sanity, by the way. I don't even have to reveal it to you, but I have it. And I'm not wearing a mask because of this condition. And if you do give me a fine, you're getting charged big time, just so you know. You probably don't even want to give me a warning, because I've been in the court system for 7 years. I win everything, by the way, also. So Mr. Police Officer or Mrs. Police Officer, you know, play rock, paper, scissors to figure out who's going to charge me, because that person's getting charged, right? And they're probably just going to walk away. I might be able to get some kind of even document that says, hey, this dude doesn't need to wear a mask. I could probably get a document. I could probably do that.
You could, yeah.
And so then but that to me is a little bit slithery. And less slithery is I go in, I get on the bus, they do the cops, I get charged, I charge them back. And then it's 25 € fine, so it's super cheap right now, right? And if I do that, then I get to go to court, and I get to say, they're going to say that I threatened other people's health, and I'm going to say, prove it. Prove it. Prove it that how do you know that you're healthy? Look, you can't arrest me for maybe stealing a car. You can't do that. Right? Prove it that I actually endangered someone. You do it now. Do it. Prove viral transmissibility by person-to-person contact from an asymptomatic person on a bus. No, do it. I'm waiting. Right? And then they're going to trickle all the way up to the CDC saying believe. And you look at these studies, you're like, I can't believe what's happening. You know, but they're going to have to prove it, and so that to me feels a little bit more ballsy, right? And I kind of feel like maybe the mask restriction is just going to go, right? Maybe come Monday.
I have a feeling it will.
Yeah, maybe come Monday.
I think coming May it's going to go. I've heard a few reports that are coming around just into May. Things like that will go. You know, something you could do that might be a fun way to do this too is if you have enough people in your social circle, or people that you could organize for 100 or 200 people to all go to that store without a mask.
Sure.
And you know, have cameras and things as well. You know, like just phones or whatever.
It's not happening in Austria. Everybody believes. I'm reckless. I'm crazy. I'm the conspiratorial nut job. There goes Dinas again. Wow, he's so crazy. We always knew he was weird. Everybody's complying because that's what you do. That's what you do in a country that has laws. And so I've asked a few people, and I'm not getting a very positive response on doing that kind of social on the ground activism. I've got one more question for you, and then let's go to Goodland. Is that okay? Okay. And I'm going to do a running translation. All right, the system is that we avoid each other, right? We do not to each other stick. We're not contagious by separating ourselves from each other. That's how we don't transfer this disease or sickness to each other. If we don't do the distancing, right? What else do we do to prevent the spread of the infection? So if you're critical, if you're critical of this distancing, right? Then also, is there any harm in distancing? But if you're critical of distancing, what's the alternative? What helps?
Okay. Is this a hypothetical question, or is this
no? It's a direct question. If you're critical of distancing, and essentially the presumption is that the distancing is done to prevent the spread of the infection, right? If you're critical of distancing, then okay, sure, be critical of distancing, but then what helps? What directly actually helps is the question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm working still off the premise that you're not contagious anyway. So the only thing that would help is not extracting blood if you're infected and injecting it into other people.
Okay.
That's what you just don't want to do that. If even with masks, for example, if people are not wearing proper surgical grade particle masks, they're not wearing a mask. They're wearing a dust mask, which is what a lot of people are wearing. That does not stop anything. So even if
it stops the larger globules, it stops the actual wetness.
It still wouldn't even stop that. There's so much of what we transfer to one another is transferred in things that are microscopic. So vapors,
this is to keep the transfer of the to prevent the transfer of the actual droplets, the ones that you can see.
The ones that you can see,
yeah. So that's a significant enough portion of it.
So the ones that you can't see are the ones that are getting through the mask, and you're actually still transferring between two people. So
you may be, but at least we're preventing the big globules. So that's why these masks make sense.
So then, how does a big globule contain a virus, but a small one doesn't? How are big globules?
Big globules have more because they're bigger.
Okay. So then it's a quantity thing, is it?
Yes.
So it's more you get, the more, okay, right. Because I thought by that logic, you could get any amount and you'll get a virus. I thought that's why we have to stay away from each other, right?
No, the more you get, the more likely you are to get sick.
Oh, okay, right. Well then, a good thing if you're sick would just be to stay home, wouldn't it?
No. The more I'm not sick. I want you to wear a mask and me to wear a mask so that neither one of us gets sick because I'm doing the socially responsible thing. And what you're arguing for is actually socially irresponsible.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, are we still playing this, or you want me to explain?
We're still playing. You can play and explain.
Okay, right. So, the whole thing about, do you know one of the funniest things about this distancing rule is that it's 2 meters for you, isn't it? 2 meters? You're distancing?
No, it's 2 meters in Latvia. Here it's 1.5.
Oh, okay. I was going to say it's 1.5 here as well. But I was just going to make a joke out of that because if it's 2 meters in, say, Germany, right, and it's 1.5 meters in Australia, then technically, if they think it's 2 meters, aren't I infecting everybody at 1.5 because I'm still,
Not if you're wearing a mask.
Yeah. Well, so then why do we need to separate from each other if we're wearing masks? Why do we need to distance? If the mask is protecting us, why do we even need to be? Can't we like hug each other if we're wearing masks?
Oh, I mean, it's not a full body condom. I mean, what are you thinking? It's just a mask. We have a plague right now, and we have to be responsible because it saves lives.
Okay, so maybe we should wear condoms over our heads or
Big
something? Is that what
ones,
you're
yes,
suggesting?
yeah. We should be all in big round plastic
Biohazard
bubbles.
suits?
Biohazard. If we could make it more fashionable by putting bubbles around us.
Yeah, right.
Well,
And
no.
then what happens
The
if-
question though is, if the social distancing is ineffective, what does work to reduce transmission?
Well, see, I mean, I'm still working off the premise that we don't have this person-to-person transmission anyway.
Sure.
But
Okay, then to
basically what
reduce disease.
if people wanted to be healthier and create healthier communities, then that starts with creating a healthier self. That means being wise about the way we choose what goes into our body. Are we just buying food from a supermarket that comes out of a tin? Are we putting it in a microwave and eating that and expecting to be healthy? Are we just drinking tap water that might have fluoride and chlorine and other chemicals in it? You know, are we filling our head with the news? Are we poisoning our minds and therefore poisoning our bodies? Now, what kind of a community are you creating health-wise if you're living against the grain of nature? So if we wanted to create healthier communities, wouldn't we be more conscious about what we're putting into our body? Would we not go out of our way to find fresh, organic food? Will we not avoid the use of pesticides and fungicides and rodenticides that are poisons that mean that the body has to create methods of getting that poisons out, such as bacterial infections, fungal infections, viral infections that are there to clean out the body? If we want a healthier community, why don't we spend more time asking questions and not listening to what the TV and the newspapers are telling us, and we actually start asking each other, you know, how do we feel about things? You know, what do you think? You know, not asking you to repeat what you've heard somebody in the media say. So I think if people want healthier communities and to lose this fear of infecting people, maybe we need to start looking at what's in our minds and whether our minds are infected in the first place, and just basic personal hygiene. You know, like I can see in your face, your body, I would have no problem being around you. You don't look like somebody who is carrying disease. You look like a healthy man. So as opposed to somebody who hasn't washed for 2 months and has, you know, like pus coming out of their face or whatever. You know, somebody is just constantly snotting everywhere. I probably don't want to be around somebody like that either, but that's not necessarily got to do with wearing a mask or not. That might be that person does not look after themselves. So it always comes back to responsibility. And are we as individuals willing to take responsibility for who we are and what we create moment to moment? So what are we creating at this moment? Are we creating a healthier body and a healthier world around us, or are we creating something that is a state of fear, and there is sickness and disease in that state? So I would ask people to consider what it is that they are creating with their thoughts and with their actions. What are they doing? Because the people who are the most scared are the ones who haven't looked after themselves. Well, I'm lucky in the area that I live in that you seem to have it really hard, and I would probably find that hard too. But today, yesterday, the day before, I've hugged everybody I've seen.
Oh my
out in the street.
God.
It's
Look,
it's not everybody I've seen, but all of the people in our social circles are still socializing. We're still hanging out in the sun, exercising. We still shake hands. We still hug after we part ways. That's still normal here where I live. It's because people around here, we live in a place where we look after ourselves. We think about what we eat. We think about what goes into our minds. We think about we think about our responsibility. How do we affect other people? So we are fully self-responsible here, which means that if we get sick, we know it's our own fault. We know we're not going to infect somebody else because we look after ourselves. The people who are the most scared are the ones that they know full well they've spent 50 years putting medications in their body. They have not watched what they've eaten, and they know that there is a consequence to that. But they want to believe, again, this goes back to that belief, they want to believe that it's somebody else's fault if they get sick. The medical system will save us all with their vaccines and whatever. That is grasping at a belief straw, thinking that I don't have to take responsibility for all the decisions I've made for the last 50 years. It's generally older people that are scared. And so therefore it's other people's fault. They have to do things. You have to wear a mask because I haven't looked after myself. And that's the real issue here, is that people who, as I said, have taken responsibility for themselves and for our own health, we know we're not infecting other people. We don't need to wear masks or avoid people. It's only the people who have something to fear, and what they need to fear is the decisions that they've been making or haven't been making. They've been letting their mind be filled with other people's propaganda and agendas. So I've seen that. I just see that everywhere. I see those two things. I see people who take responsibility and people who don't, and then project that onto the rest of the world, that everybody else needs to get vaccines and wear masks and do this and listen to the news. That's what I see throughout the whole world.
Well, regarding what we're creating, and also, my daughter's a very huggy person.
Yeah.
And we live in a very psychologically and emotionally harsh community.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last few years, I've noticed that, she'll hug friends that have become friends, and they didn't want to be hugged. They didn't want to be hugged. They didn't want to be hugged. It's almost like, and it's my daughter's really suffering because she's just isolated, and she wakes up at 7:30 in the morning, looks around, draws something, whatever. This is her math, right? She does some kind of math. She makes it very pretty, by the way. That's her. See how she does her math. And she goes back to bed. She doesn't even want to be awake. She thinks it's more fun to be asleep.
Yeah, right.
And so, speaking of what we're creating, one thing is, of course, for all the audience and anybody who's going to see this in now or in the future, anybody who interacts with me, you take full responsibility for your own health and actions. That's my entire disclaimer. That's it. So you actually are not allowed to watch this interview because it's got me in it if you don't, right?
Yeah.
So that's got to be very clear. And now, regarding taking responsibility for what we create, how about we create Goodland? How did Goodland do in November? What did Goodland do? Goodland is a fictional country. They've got 100 million people. There's a point in, it's called the Nemo point. I Googled what's the furthest away from anything. And there's a point, and that's, I named it. I think I might have even named it. It's named this point. So I don't know if I named it just for my computer, but I'm like, okay, it's called Goodland. So they got 100 million people. What did they do? How did things go November, December? It's April 18th, 2020, but Goodland exists. And what happened in Goodland? And it was clearly better than in Australia, better than Austria, better than in the United States. What happened there?
Yeah.
And the pandemic did happen. I mean, what did they do? What did they do in Goodland?
Okay, right. So there is an actual outbreak of like disease throughout the country. Yeah, it's not just something the media made up.
We can say that. I mean, we're making it up. Okay. They have scientists. Right, they have top scientists. They're testing as well. They do have virologists and immunologists.
Yeah.
They're making the same. They're making. Let's even say that they're seeing similar numbers. It's November. It's December. It's January. And they're able to use this test to see that there is something that they're considering an infection, and that it is this novel coronavirus. So they do have it in their population.
Okay. So let's just say then that, I say that if there was no such thing as the media, there'd be no such thing as coronavirus. But let's just say in this, let's just say in this place that we're in now, there is a certain percentage of the population who are definitely getting sick to something. Let's just call it, the plague. Let's just call it a plague. There's a certain percentage of people. So what the people in this country would do is they would start asking, well, there's this many people that are sick, but who are these people? So are they all elderly? Is it affecting people across a wide range of ages, or are they all in a certain age bracket? That's what I'd ask first. Then I'd look for commonalities. I'd say, well, what else? Like, is it only affecting people that also already have diabetes? Do they also already have heart disease? Like, what are some of the underlying factors that are also contributing to this? Then I would look into their history of medication, and I would say, I'm assuming this place still has vaccines and medications and things too, and I'd say, did all of these people receive a vaccine in the last few years? Did they all get a flu shot? Did they all get a Hep B shot? Did they all get some combination of shot?
Did they all go to a particular pub, an Irish pub, on a particular date?
Exactly. Or were they all around a certain area that was sprayed with the same chemical? I would ask all of these questions to see if there was a correlative factor that led to a certain percentage of the population, let's say 5%, all getting this same illness. I would be looking for all of these causative factors that are commonalities between all of them. Then what I would do, once I've determined that it's not contagious, because it only affected people in this age bracket, or it only affected people that were exposed to this
poison, some kind of environmental toxin. Sure. Yeah, Goodland used to have a manufacturing center, and they had particulate matter in the air. They had they took care of it though. They had an area that had some pretty bad pollution for a while.
Okay. So then let's say that's taken care of, and then so now this outbreak is contained. This plague has only affected this 5%, and it's not growing anymore. So then what I would do with this 5% is we'd say, well, look, what's it really affecting in the body, and why? What sort of toxins has you taken in, and what's it affecting? Is it affecting the lungs or the liver? Is it affecting the heart, or is it affecting the spine? Is it putting on polio-like symptoms? Then what we would do is we would focus on that specific part of the body that is being that is having the issues, and we would look at detoxifying that particular part of the body. So how would we do that? Are we going to look at using something like intravenous vitamin C infusions? Are we going to look at the diet? Are we going to look at certain foods like the raw saturated fats that can help chelate certain toxins from the body? And what else are we going to do for these people? Are they still stressed? Are we going to put them on a rest and recovery cycle, including these natural methods of detoxifying whatever organ in the body is being is under not attacked but is being suppressed, and then we're gonna treat these people all in that method. We're going to look at what is the causative factor and removing that, not looking at it like they're getting attacked by a bug and trying to kill a bug or wear masks to protect against the virus. So we're really just being smart about things, and we're not just like looking at jumping to conclusions and then putting drastic measures in that affect the whole country. We're looking at why they're sick in the first place, and then we're looking at removing the reason that they're sick. And then I think that's a very simple way of going about it, and being very pragmatic and very just using a lot of common sense about things and not getting caught up in a fear cycle, and not just sort of doing the sort of things which people are doing now, which is completely nonsensical. And I think in Goodland, I think the people make a very strong recovery. They don't suffer economically. They don't suffer from the majority of health in the country, because we've taken a very simplistic but very effective view of what's going on. We've contained it, we've treated it, and now everything's just gone back to normal, and we can get on in with our lives.
So did schools close in Goodland?
No, nothing closed. Well, nothing closed because... Go ahead.
Yeah, nothing closed because, sorry?
Oh, well, nothing closed because we found out the reasons why people were getting sick, and it was only affecting people who are 70 to 90 years old. There was a few people that had similar symptoms, but it wasn't that particular plague. They just had a common cold or a common cough.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, we had, maybe I'll just completely making this up. The 70 to 90-year-olds, we had a coal-firing plant that wasn't optimally secured regarding, it was polluting. So we had a region, and a lot of those 70 to 90-year-olds had spent at least 10 years of their lives in that area during the height of us using coal to produce power. So that was kind of a mistake. So the government Goodland government feels bad about that. So okay, so schools weren't closed. Is there a mask requirement in Goodland?
No, there's no mask requirement because we've already established that it's a result of an internal problem with the people. So we're treating that with natural causes. If we would only need masks if you could actually cough on somebody and create that same disease in them, but you can't cough up 10 years worth of being exposed to toxic coal fumes. You can only get that if you had been exposed to that yourself. So yeah, we're not wearing masks.
Okay. So I'm assuming then also can employees work next to each other? Are there any work restrictions?
Yeah. There's no restrictions.
So
we're still making sure people are carrying out basic hygiene. You know, you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands, that kind of thing. But we're not putting in any measurements about how close you need to be to each other or anything like that.
Well, I'm going to make another fictional situation. So as opposed to in a lot of countries where the government stance was very, very aggressive, you know, we have this very loose, the schools are open, we're treating the people who are sick, but we have a lawsuit. There's a company where everybody's working very close to each other, and somebody came down with the flu and died. And that family is suing the government for not taking appropriate COVID measures. Do you have any suggestions for that situation?
Yeah, I'd be looking at the coroner's report. I was looking for the coroner to have said that this was absolutely a cause, that was the cause of death.
COVID was detected in the body. It was in the body, but we don't know if it's causal.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. I would make sure the coroner hasn't declared that it was.
Ooh, let's make it worse. It's the family's. It's his brother that's the coroner, and his brother, the coroner, is saying it was definitely COVID.
Okay. And then
we don't even know if it's brother. The coroner's saying it's definitely COVID. The coroner's been watching all the news and is into the whole thing and is a Fauci fan and wears a Bill Gates pin, and you know the coroner is, you know, just really going, oh, we need to be doing this differently, and the coroner says no, the government is guilty. We should have done masks, social distancing like everywhere else in the world. So we're going to get this family, you know, $500 million.
Yeah. So what I'd be doing is I'd be getting the medical records, and I'd be making sure they didn't have a heart condition, high blood pressure, diabetes. They're not on other medications. They don't have a blood problem. They don't have a lung problem. They don't have cirrhosis of the liver. They don't have leukemia. They don't have anything else that was pre-existing. If they had nothing that's pre-existing, then sure. But I'm pretty sure that medical report is going to show a lot of pre-existing conditions that were the cause of death, and they just happened to have COVID in their blood at the time of death, but the cause of death was most definitely going to have been liver failure, which that virus doesn't affect, or a blood-borne condition, which that virus doesn't affect. You know, that's what I'm going to be looking for. So I reckon if we pull those medical records, we're going to find that family doesn't have a case.
Okay. So I think we're getting close to our thank yous and the close. I am actually going to ask you. I've now decided that I am going to do this, but it's a matter of whether you've got another 10 minutes. Now it's. Is there anything open that you'd still like to say? Because for people who've listened this long, they've listened for 2 hours. They're very vested. We have viewers, so we have people who've been with us, and they might kind of deserve. You might have something final that you'd like to say to someone who's invested this much time into our discussion, and then I'm going to ask you. Sure. I think I'm going to do it, but it's whether you're open to it or not. I'm going to stop the live, and then I'm going to ask you I'm going to reveal something to you that's very private that I may post in one of my online communities. But before you don't even have to say yes or no to that now. How about we say bye to our live audience? There's 5 of us left, so it's not a million people. We've gotten 12 hearts, 5 thumbs up. And there's 7 of us all together. Okay, so we're together now. Do you have some closing remarks or something that maybe we might not have covered?
Yeah, sure. I think the main thing about all of this, the whole reason I made the video in the first place that everybody saw, was that this has nothing to do with the virus. I don't think it's wise for people to try to get too caught up in what a virus is. You know, the fact that we can catch it or we can't. Because what is happening now clearly has a much greater agenda than just a virus. There's so much going around that can show people that it's not this contagion and it's not killing the amount of people as being claimed. So it's really about being very, becoming a lot more self-aware and a lot more secure in yourself. And one thing that I like to leave people with is that if you haven't had the experience of seeing, you know, a lot more than what other people see about how life works, how the world works, and how we work as people, I like to give people the faith that some of us do see this stuff. And while people might be seeing all the negatives in the world, like your daughter, she can't hug her friends and all that sort of stuff, just know that this is going to come to an end. It's not something that is going to endure forever. And when it does come to an end, we can look back and say, well, that kind of sucked at that time, but it's going to seem like it was over before. It's not going to be this forever thing. But also, if you're only seeing some of the negative effects in the world, you're seeing we're going to be forced to do this and we currently can't do this and whatever else. I just want people to know that even though you can't see what else is going on in the world, you can't see these forces of good, that just know that they're there, because there's no such thing as all good or all bad in the world. Even if you can only, for example, right now for me it's dark outside, it's 9 o'clock at night, so it's pitch black. If I were to look outside right now, I would say it's dark, everything's dark. But it's not, because where you are, it's probably daylight, right?
Yeah.
It's daylight where you are. So just because I can only see dark, it doesn't mean that it's dark. There's still an equal amount of light in the world, it's just that I'm not seeing it. So there's always this light and dark, this yin-yang, like people have taught this for thousands of years. And if all you're seeing at the moment is the negative, you just got to kind of know and have a bit of faith that there is also an equal amount of positive working away to bring things back to balance. Whether you know about it or not, or you can see it or not, it doesn't mean that it's not there. So to just have that little bit of faith that everything's going to come through okay, that's going to change your state of being. It's going to change you from being fearful and negative to a bit more positive and optimistic. And that change of positivity and optimism in more and more people, that is actually going to create a better change in what's happening out in the world, because there's not much fear and negativity then. So it's very important for people to monitor how we can't change what's going on outside. We can't change if the streets are lined with military with machine guns. We can't change that, but we can change how we feel about that or how we act or react to that. So, and if enough of us know that there's something not quite right about what's going on, then we can most certainly make a difference and a change. But one of the most powerful things is to separate people. And that's what's going on at the moment. That's why they're putting in these, and it is fake. It's a massive hoax. There's no reason for us to be separated. But what it is doing, they are separating us. And that makes it harder for us to have that, yeah, we can, you know, I can still go to the shops or I can still do this. It's harder if you're on your own because you don't have the support of everybody around you. So I would suggest that in whatever way you can do that, whether it's just by phone or by social media or whatever, is just to stay in contact with people who are supportive of you as well. To more than anything, to spend time. If people are in their houses, you know, I'm not stuck in a house. I go out anytime I want. But some people are voluntarily putting themselves in their houses around we are. And if you're in that state, again, that doesn't have to be all bad, because you can spend that time to get to know yourself a bit more. Instead of just watching TV with that time or filling your head with the bad news about what's going on, you know, you can try actually creating something. Maybe you can learn a language or take up an instrument. You can meditate and get better at meditation or learn how to meditate. There's a lot of things that you can do to make yourself and create a better person who, when this is over, and it will be over before you know it, you come out of it going, wow, I actually became a better person. Or you could have sat inside crying about it and coming out no better off than you were before. So as much as what's going on out there is not a good thing, it doesn't mean that we can't improve ourselves as a result and come out of it, you know, having actually gained something from the experience. I think that's the message that I like to give people more than anything, is to try to remove these layers of fear within and replace them with something a bit more positive.
Thanks so much for that. I'm gonna just ask our audience to meditate and pray also for Tom's well-being and give him a lot of spiritual thanks. And with that, I'm actually going to close the live portion of our interview. And then, Tom, I'm going to ask you if you want to participate in me revealing something very private but I would record that just on the Skype recording. But we're going to say bye to our guests.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thanks
Okay.
for being with us.
Thank you.
Click finish there. Click end.